What's up, everybody? How's it going? This is John Wydogen, and this is Natural Freedom League. Our website is naturalfreedomleague.com. Check us out. Here once again with my producer and co-host, Chill Will Keller.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, Will?
I'm doing good, brother. Another episode. Excited.
Am I coming through choppy?
No, you're good.
You're good. You're good right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll flow with it.
Exactly. I know it doesn't really matter, right? It is what it is. Our special guest today is our friend Ashel Seasunz. And he is an urban shaman, and he started the organization Essential Food and Medicine. How you doing, Ashel?
I'm good. Yeah, and just to know, like, I don't necessarily identify like as a shaman or something like that, but I get the sentiment around that. But
yeah, I saw you do a talk. I saw you do a talk about it. So
yeah.
I don't know. I connected with the term.
Yeah, it's a powerful term for sure. But yeah, it's interesting concepts around it. I think you laid out, and we were talking and discussing this over text to some of this. So excited to talk about all that.
Yeah, man, it seems like you have a lot of experiences in activism around Bay Area. You came up and how you came up area.
You might have to repeat. Yeah, you might have to repeat that. You broke up a little bit, John.
Cool. Yeah, I was just saying that we wanted to hear some of your experiences, so I wanted to know how you ended up in the Bay Area and how you got into activism.
Definitely, yeah. And again, thanks for having me on. Always really appreciate folks coming together to have discussions about ideas and topics at a time. Well, I'm from Chicago originally, and then so I ended up going to University of Rochester, upstate New York. Moved to Brooklyn for a little brief moment, but University of Rochester, majored in music management, psychology, and a minor in creative writing. And I think that's what got me involved more in like the psychology and spirituality at that point. But also I was working, I had like Black Panthers in my family. So I have, my aunt was one of the women of the Black Panther Party in Illinois. And then so I connected to people like Mumia Abu-Jamal, people like that. And then so that's what really got me interested in that aspect of activism. And just being on campus, organizing different things and seeing how, if anything wanted to happen, it took people, it took organizing, it took organization. And there's people behind the scenes that were making things work, they had a purpose and a volition to make something happen. So I was like, wow, I would want to be with those people creating things, concerts, whatever it was, music, experiences. And then I went to the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology out in Palo Alto. That's really when I started studying shamanism. Started working with, healers and curanderos from Peru, and got more deeply involved in like plant medicines, consciousness study, meditation, Taoism, different, self-sciences, if you will. And yeah, lot to say from there. I don't know how deep you want to go into the history, everything, but essentially from there I was touring with Bass Nectar, doing a lot of music, and simultaneously I was working with Ben Jones. I was working with Ben Jones at Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, and then I was working at another organization, Green for All, Green Jobs. Essentially trying to create opportunities with the, figure out how to get the green tech industry that was blowing up, that had blew up the .com era, the same folks in Silicon Valley, trying to figure out how to, like, you know, get some resources to different communities in Oakland and you know, around the country, you know. So green jobs, things like that, gardens, food. Then I started SOS Juice in that same time period, which is system out of your system, which is a process of detoxification. You know, so we did juicing, work with the foods direct, did a lot of organizing with farmers, um, farmers' rights, environmentalism, things of that nature. But I always had this bent in like spirituality and really just really seeking out the truth as a truth seeker and just trying to figure out how to actually alleviate the suffering planetary and individually. So, you know, just went deeper with different teachers, started studying tea and gong, um, like this celestial qigong practices, all the while still going deeper with the juicing, especially after my grandmother passed away from diabetes. So I was like, wow, we can fight for quote unquote justice and all these different things. But there's one element that we have some power over right now, and it's like the choices we make to what we put in our body. But then that led to deeper discoveries around genetically modified foods, the food, you know, industrial complex, if you will, and it really got more deeper into, you know, mechanisms that are, you know, that's modify our behaviors and our consciousness and how to, like, you know, positively shift that for folks. So really just, you know, got involved with, you know, just, you know, figuring out how to liberate myself and others. So lifelong student, excited to be here on the show, and see what we can learn here and share.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. That's amazing. You've had a lot of meaningful experiences that I think just people like hearing your story and, you know, learning huge. I thought it'd be good to read you our mission statement just for the show, right? I mean, it's kind of similar to the mission statement of. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you were
Can
a little
you guys hear me?
choppy. Yeah, you're coming in right now.
Okay. What I was saying was reading the mission statement of the show, which is to apply the trivium to the agenda against natural law in order to better discern the truth from the lies of the current state of humanity.
Mm.
So basically, we are trying to teach people about natural law. A lot of what we do has been influenced by the work of Mark Passio. He has a website called What on Earth is Happening.
Mm.
He believes that the most occulted knowledge is natural law, which is basically karma, and that, you know, the people who manipulate the masses, they're trying to hide natural law or God's law from the masses through obfuscation, making us sick, things like that. So we're diving into what most people would consider conspiracies, and really trying to apply the trivium to them, and really be using discernment and sharing with people of different belief systems to kind of work through all of it. So that's sort of the goal of the show. So you can see how everything you're talking about fits in with what we're trying to do.
Indeed, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, especially the health aspect. That's kind of how my journey started, was through water and then raw foods, juicing and stuff, and that led me into gardening. And then, you know, you just start looking into other stuff and how it affects the body, and then the mind body connection. So, you know, health and spirituality go hand in hand, because that's one thing you do have, you know, full control over, is what you do put in your body. So I love that. Love that you have that background.
Yeah, no, that's powerful, because a lot of times people, especially in, like, you know, with activism, people leave out those elements a little bit. Like when they working on certain issues, it's considered sort of soft, or you start talking about health, but it's also like one of those things where, you know, for folks to look in the mirror, sometimes it's really some of the hardest things to do. But then you go down a rabbit hole real quick when you start look at some of the forces that are in conditioning that we've internalized and digested that keep us in certain vibrational patterns and things like that. So, you know, I grew up in a hood in Chicago. So like, you know, Barbara Jean Wright Court, 1080 West 14th Street. So, you know, I grew up, my grandmother passed away from diabetes, and I saw that, and I saw the conditions we were all living in. And, you know, at some point in there, I was like, wow, I remember being in college, University of Rochester, couldn't really afford certain food, and was like, wow, like I had to actually just start eating more lighter and shifted from like a heavier diet just out of necessity, and then started seeing the clarity in myself. And that clarity led me to other opportunities and other possibilities for my life. You know, just that clarity and the energy that I had in my body. So I was like, wow, that's a key right there. And that's like, again, like you said, that's like universal law. You know, gets into more like those type of laws when we start looking at the relationship between the individual and the universe, individual and in nature. So aligning that seems to be a part of like the solution for a lot of things, as we've seen with, you know, just health, quote unquote, health miracles. I think things we call miraculous sometimes is just things that, you know, or supernatural even, are things we just don't necessarily physically, don't always understand. And we sort of been conditioned to think that there's externally, there's this guy in a white coat, he's the only person that can save us, or, you know, I gotta take this pill or whatever, and that's the only thing that can maintain my health. And we sort of been taught to look outside and really search for these like top-down technocratic medical industrial complex solutions for things that are inherent in our nature, you know, in an earth, and we've done for generations, our ancestors participated in. So, you know, it's sort of just like looking at the things that work, you know, that are low-hanging fruit, that are most simple, you know, because the simple is the most advanced, you know. So yeah, this is it's powerful. I want to learn more about what like the natural law and what you just mentioned about the statement for the show. I'm very curious, like, you know, where this is all gonna go. I'm gonna check the website for sure.
Yeah. So we had a show we did about word magic, which Will was reading about, and he sent me some information, and just the power of words and the importance of being impeccable with how you use your words.
Mm,
And then we were applying that to going out in the streets with signs
mm,
or creating memes, but we're
mm-hmm,
trying to plant these values and lessons and wisdom from natural law,
mm,
you know. So we're really breaking down words. So one thing we wanted to do was define words. So I did look up what shaman, the definition of a shaman, and this was from dictionary.com. Says, especially among certain tribal peoples, a person who acts as intermediary between the natural and supernatural worlds, using magic to cure illness, foretell the future, control spiritual forces, etc.
mm-hmm.
And what we definitely do get into the idea of magic and the ability, but like you're saying, what appears to be magic. Can you guys still hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. What appears to be magic could actually be just natural, but we've been distracted from it, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just thought it was good to define that word, and then maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you where you studied shamanism, and just what types of things did you learn. I mean, was it a lot based around the food, or
Right. Well, you know, I mean, one of the things we like at Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, it sort of brought me deeper into things I was really interested in before. So I was always interested in indigenous culture. Like I have Blackfoot in my family, so I was always interested in that. But I was always really interested in Eastern philosophies and psychology, so Buddhism, um, Taoism, Confucianism, things like that, where folks really just studied the self. They study their own human vessel as nature, and then did some of the things they came up with, or the Four Noble Truths, like the things that they discovered about the nature of suffering, um, our capacity to transcend karmic weight, like some of the tools they came up with. And you find that these different things sort of in other cultures as well, like sort of different patterns of which you could find in the Eastern philosophies and things like that. You also find it in shamanism. So I studied shamanism from that standpoint until I had really direct experiences. And then I really zoned in on more like Peruvian shamanism from a shamanism standpoint. But I also got involved in Shintoism too, like just through Sukimarikari, that was part of that is Shintoism. Sukimarikari means universal principles of divine light. So that was something I picked up, this initiation where we get purifying light, sort of get this initiation. And what that does is melts negative karma. So what I started learning through that was that they showed the example that, generation on generation, family members would have the same disease, leukemia, for example. And so we may call that hereditary, but from this perspective, there was sort of what they would call with our ancestors, there was disturbances with our ancestors. So there was things that may have happened that hasn't had the proper resolution, or sort of created this like karmic debt that you have to carry in this present life, such as the phrase, the sins of the father visit the children type of thing. So, under the idea that, energy's never lost or dissipated, that makes sense on a scientific level as well. And then I started just having experiences. So giving light, receiving light, and seeing things that might be like a total crash turn into a fender bender. So and I learned that those practices and traditions that work directly on how to make one's life harmonious, that engaged in this sort of this otherworldly communication with ancestral and with different beings, entities, and had a map that we didn't necessarily have in the West. Like we have the primary religion, for example, in the United States is Christianity. Beautiful, beautiful tenets and beautiful religion in a lot of ways. And then but with that, obviously through the years, there's been a lot of distortion and things like this. But those same similar principles you start seeing other places as well. So it's yeah. So in terms of like for example, Christianity also has Christian mysticism, and sort of the roots of a lot of these religions were like people who had specific experiences, and then they sort of extrapolated that and it became like this religion. But they might have just had like an awakening experience that is said even in those religious texts that this is too, you can also inherit this, you can also participate because you are also made in an image and a likeness type of thing. So it's just it's just been a journey of just like sort of questioning the truth, and then I ended up finding a really deep home down in Peru where work with different plant medicines down there and some of the teachings down there, and it just blew my mind to the multidimensionality of the human self, to the degree that you can see that we're more powerful than we've been led on to believe. We have a lot of agency actually in how life goes for us, based on like how deeply aligned are we with universal laws. So, I mean, we can go on and with that. I mean, I also participate in Dagara, West African divination. And I was really curious at the beginning of this COVID situation too. I was like, because, we were around for 9/11 and I was in New York and I mean, I was one of those people, I'm always one of those guys. And I was just like, I don't know, like building number 7, like what happened with that? And then people were like, how could you say this? How could you say governments? Well, I'm like, I'm just saying, like, just look at, observe situation. And then it's like weapons of mass destruction. I was like, okay. So then, we have those experiences and people and you have the cognitive dissonance and people sort of shut you down. So a lot of it, the meditation and all that is just to keep us open and awake so that we can actually see a true line to the light at the end of the tunnel. Because otherwise it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors out here. You know what I mean? So it is tied in. It's like, what we eat, how we treat our vessel, our temple is definitely tied into our ability to free ourselves. My pops would always say, he's like, nobody can ride your back unless you bent over. So we have to look at like where are we compromising ourselves, and that's more of a harder. I wouldn't say harder; it's just more challenging for most people to like. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be disciplined with myself. I'm gonna be presidential with myself. I'm gonna vote for me in my like sovereignty. You know what I mean? And those type of things. But it's a lot of distractions. And it doesn't mean that say you sit and you're passive or something. It just means that, ground zero, you take care of that and then we can have more clarity. So that goes in a lot of the work we do now, essential food and medicine, is we distribute food, juice, smoothies, natural medicines to really restore the roots of health for folks and try to have that open up some possibilities for organization, some agency, some freedom in people's personal lives and therefore the community. So it's just our strategy, for our organization based off of, just studying history and spiritual different spiritual practices and just seeing that, yeah, this is a good baseline that I feel like a lot of people can agree on. Like, it's hard to fight with an apple, So it's strategic in that way too, because it's sort of benign. People are like, oh, he's into juice. But what we do, we work with the water and the juices and the liquids because those hold energy and information. You know what I mean? So you can put a lot of prayers, thoughts, words, intentions, like Dr. Emoto said, messages in the water. So it's just a process of just from the inside out for us of really doing transformation. Yeah.
Yeah, man. The human body is what, 78% water, 76% water. So,
Right.
it's gonna take the shape of what you're becoming mentally. And I really liked what you said about the hereditary or so-called hereditary. It's mainly like an ancestral feedback loop that gets passed
Right.
down from generation to generation. And one of the biggest parts of truth discovery is actually unlearning and learning. But you have to unlearn all of these conditionings and programs that have been passed down and what we're constantly fed with, on a day-to-day basis, especially in the modern times.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because the uncarved block of wood, has the opportunity to know everything. Like the closed fist can accept the breath of the universe. So we already know everything. We think like, yeah, this is what it is. This was really interesting me around the issues around, my sons and I, and then we were having discussions around like vaccination. It just seemed like it was scientism, right? It was just like, well, this is the way it is. But I thought the scientific process was always about discovery and searching and figuring it out. Like, oh, you got some new data? Oh, cool. And we sort of think that's how it works with scientists, right?
Yeah.
Until we found out like who was paying who and this type of thing. But it's like, yeah, like we get the capacity to discover like for ourselves and be like, yeah. And the water is really important like that because it really exemplifies this unity, the unification. because all those little drops of water creates the ocean, but yet it's still water. It's really magical water. So yeah,
That's awesome.
simple, very simple. You know, taking care of waterways. One thing, I was working with this woman, Liv Wheeler, who was doing the Katamle divination, and we work with these different the Katamle. The Katamle are like water spirits, but they're ancient, you know. So this is like a 40,000-year-old technology of like divination, of like, you know, using different natural instruments and tools to get information specifically from like ancient old particular beings, you know. And they're very wise, and they were discussing how the rivers were, you know, the damming of the rivers, which is something I also explored with Tien Gong, Grandmaster Li Tien, how these riverways are almost like meridian lines in the individual, the person, the human, and that, you know, some of the rivers weren't making it to the sea, and it's almost like there's clogged arteries or blood clots, these type of things. There's so much of the extraction in industry, and just like sort of just ignorance around like geomancy, relationship between the land health and the health of the people. And that's a big shamanic tenet right there, is that the land is healthy, then the people are healthy.
As
So
above, so below.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, these like universal principles.
Exactly. This is what natural law is all about. Yeah,
Exactly.
You
that's
know,
awesome.
I wanted to throw in there. I've been listening and reading a lot of Rudolf Steiner. I don't know if
Oh
you've
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he really brings in this like spirit. He calls it spiritual science, and
Mhm.
it it kind of ties the Christianity and the Western religions in with that spiritual tradition. And what's interesting is when he talks about us falling from these different root races, right? Like, you know, we started off, you know, on Saturn, and then we went to the sun, and then but we were there, but we were different, like, you know, composed differently, right? We weren't like the physical body yet, and we kept falling, right? But he
Mhm.
says the physical body and the physical organs that allow you to experience this realm, the physical body is actually the most perfect version of the the different levels, the different bodies, and that, you know, I think we tend to neglect how important the physical is, like starting there. You know what I mean? Give
Yeah.
someone a good glass of juice for the day, and you clear their mind, and you allow them to be in a position where they can take in this information, you know, and they can,
Right.
you know, you can enter into a discussion on that. Uh,
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to add, sorry, is just that when in talking about passing things down, I remember
Mhm.
just from personal experience, like thinking how, well, they always say that, you know, things are genetic, but like say, like I played basketball, but my dad didn't really play basketball. But that muscle memory for me, I always just intuitively knew I would pass that on to my kid, right? Like, or it was possible that I could pass that on to my kid. So like, so the genes are also recording, you know, your DNA is recording right now. You're adding to your, you know, and again, that's just like karma, you know, you're adding to that memory, that muscle memory, that message, and you are able to change genetics. And now it's proven through epigenetics that that's
Right.
possible.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful. We have like supercomputer. I remember I was in some small room with Sadhguru. You know Sadhguru? He has a really big white beard. It's an Indian guy.
Oh, maybe I think I do know who that is.
Yeah. He's like the Indian version of you, John. He's like Sadhguru.
I think I was listening to him this morning, actually, coincidentally. I think he popped up on my YouTube feed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has this thing called inner engineering. And then that kind of really got me more into meditation. you know, just seeing inner engineering, like, you know, the in as in, as out, as above, below. Buddhism, and they say like, as if the world, if you're at peace, the world is at peace. These type of things. So the power of perception, all these type of things. So Sadhguru really talks about that. I mean, there's even these studies, actually, you know, spiritual science studies. I think it was like the Maharishi. What is this guy's name? This particular like guru figure, but they did, his institute would do meditations and group meditations in DC, and they noted that crime rates dropped when they did these particular group meditations. So that just exemplified the energy field that can be radiated when there's like a collective group focus in one particular area. You know, which is really like the emptiness. Because the emptiness, when you clear the emptiness, that's the vacuum in which everything in the physical was created. So there's some value to just being able to sit in the stillness. Vipassana really did help me with that. It really shifted my activism too, because I had these experiences. You do these 10-day sits and you're doing Vipassana, which is like Buddha's original meditation. It really is just observation and observing the self, observing the breath. You noticing that your mind is going crazy. And these thoughts are what are creating these choices, you know, these actions eventually. So I was like, wow, that's a really powerful discipline to be able to sit still for an hour and just notice all the sensations, to the point that bad sensations that you're repulsed by become neutralized, or pleasurable sensations that we're craving, you know, they become neutralized, and it just turns into sensation. And then there's all this power that swells up to be like super present in the moment and simultaneously create, like, you know, create from there. So I just started seeing like, wow, like these folks were warriors, because it takes a lot to just sit and observe, and be with all of it. You know, that's why it's really powerful what's happening now with okay, then you could I hate to quit carpet on the you know, the pharmaceutical industry, but like this whole thing coming down with these RNA, DNA changing sequences, like you talk about epigenetics, and it's all this experimentation happening on a perfectly designed vessel already. And it's just like, yeah, like you guys need help from some other guy who invented something. It's just kind of crazy. It's interesting logic. I don't get it, but a lot of people
belief in authority, right? The belief in authority. They got a white lab coat on, and you know, whatever they recommend, people just run with. It's crazy.
And I'm just like, wow, like you literally are altering your DNA, like this precious thing that's been developed over millions of years. Like,
yeah.
But all of a sudden, after a million years, now it's like, oh yeah, we got a better idea. It's like, wow, really? So it's really amazing to witness this right now. But
yeah, you know, going through the health freedom movement, I always say you could see the buildup of how I started feeling like we're caught in a dialectic here, right? Like they would like show us one day a negative report about vaccines and then a positive report, and it was like this debate they were keeping us in. And when COVID hit, I was like, there it is. You know, they made everybody so afraid of the measles.
Yeah.
And so afraid, and like if you don't get vaccinated, they shamed us for the last at least 5-6 years, you know. And it's
WHO was like, yeah, like people who don't vaccinate are the biggest threat to health in 2018.
Yeah, man.
So they kind of like knew that it was a buildup happening to what we're experiencing now. And it's just like, wow, like we were talking about this, what happened? You know, and then everybody has to do mandatory.
Yeah, the immune system is a conspiracy theory now.
Right. Yeah.
Vitamin C is a conspiracy theory, you know?
Yeah. So that's what I was telling some of my friends who are more like militant activists, which it's all good. Like, but I was just like, wow, like there's something like in you know, in the seed of a watermelon, it's enough power to power like a nuclear bomb or something. Like it's so much energy in the earth that it doesn't come on a TV screen or zoom past you on a corner and get you some status or something. But it's like something so precious about that. But our values have been somehow like warped because we sort of kept at like a at a certain level of existence, awareness. So yeah, so this process like education and keeping the vibration high.
I mean, I think that's the one thing that we all are doing is we're trying to, educate people in different ways. And so I thought it would be good if we could learn about your experience working so closely with the houseless community.
Yeah, for sure. So with Essential Food and Medicine, that started at the beginning of COVID. And again, with that, I met up with Social Bernadette Moreno. We co-founded that. And at the time, when I heard everything that was coming down and saw the situation, I had just flew in the country from Mali, from West Africa, and people were stun gunning me with it. Did you come from China? And this type of thing. I was like, no, I didn't come from China. And then I came back, and it was just like another world, and everybody was in shock about the situation, and people were freaking out. And I was like, well, what are my resources right now? And so meditation, because I can get information, stay still and get clear, because the news was bugging out and friends and family were bugging out and people were just in a frenzy. So I think antidote was like stillness and silence. So what I was getting really clearly was, just offer medicine, whatever your medicines are. So for me, I was doing the juicing. I had, medicinal chocolates, mushrooms, reishi, things that boost your immune system. Hape, which is like the South American snuff that clears out your sinus and clears your mind, relaxes your nervous system, and also music. So I played Igoni, played West African harp. So I was knowing that I was gonna have to like play music for people at night, because everybody's all they had was their Zoom, which is a similar situation right now still. But it was like you have to stay connected because there's something important about staying connected when people are intentionally being pushed away from each other. I think very strategically. And then so I was like, wow, we had to stay connected. So music transcends. So from there, I met Social, and she was doing food drop-offs in West Oakland at the housing encampments, because one of the principles I was getting really strongly was that service is their salvation. What you give is what you receive. Another universal principle. So it's like aligned with that one, because everybody was sort of afraid of everyone and everything and things in the air and all this stuff. And it was like, well, that's just like, how do I support you and how do I serve you with my medicine to inspire others? People like, actually, I can come outside and like, I can give you like, I have food, I have this, I have that, instead of being so like, away from each other. So that was really powerful to me to start juicing for that community. And in West Oakland, there's a spot called Wood Street. And it's the Wood Street community. And it's about 100 to 200 residents. It's one of the largest encampments on the West Coast. And there's everything out there. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West in some ways. But we were bringing food from Oakland Unified School District that they were throwing away, and we redistributed that. So we were capturing the negative karma that the United States and these food systems, these leaky food systems, were creating by throwing away food. I was like, well, I think a lot of people can agree with, like, yeah, we can get that to people who need it the most. And that was one of the beautiful moments when I had a lot in my kitchen. We're producing. I had folks who were quote unquote Trump supporters. I had folks who were everything under the sun, and we were all chopping up apples and juicing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, we don't need to be divided in all these different kinds of ways. Like just like be in that flow. And it was just beautiful to have people come to the kitchen, and cry and be like, wow, I've been in my house for months and I just want to figure out a way to contribute. And I think naturally people want to be able to be in contribution. Like we have gifts and things we have imbued within us that we want to contribute. And when we don't necessarily do that, that's what turns into disease and illness, when we don't able to express ourselves and release emotion, and we're just stuck in these boxes. So when I saw that the people that were coming in were getting healing, and then in the service of it, you're getting more healing just being in service, just giving stuff to people. And I was like, wow. So I felt like we got in an energy bubble almost, because it was like the roads were clear. And I was like, wow, we actually get the chance to set up an organization. So it was sort of like for those who are like awake, or for those who are just into that flow, it just was beauty and amazing. And then the irony of it, people would be cheering us on and simultaneously be saying, stay at home. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating, because we would come to their door and give people the juices and stuff, and they would love it. So we did stuff for people who are sheltered in place, but also the unhoused. And we're working with them now more, to the point that we did a health fair where we brought in acupuncturists, massage therapists, um, Suki Marikari practitioner, Reiki experts, sound healers, wound care, um, just a lot of different practitioners in the community who had been sheltered in or whatever, and they wanted to be a contribution. So then we like, let's create a space for folks to actually contribute to each other. And what we find, really, we think we're giving to someone else, but we really receive the most. We really receive the most out of being in contribution. So that's why essential food and medicine is today. We still supply the juice, the smoothies, and now we're starting more one-on-one programming where we can give people directly what they need in terms of the natural medicines. Social, who's the co-founder of EFAM, she's like a third or fourth year in the medical herbalism field. So she, was like, wow, plants can do this. All this is possible. So I felt like because of the crises of the moment, if you allowed ourselves to ride that wave in a certain way, it boosted us, some of us, to the point that we got healthier, more knowledgeable about our system, more knowledgeable about what actually the immune system is and isn't, and actually what is possible with not with nature.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. And yeah, and being service to others, it really is a impactful, motivating feeling of gratitude when you're really helping someone out and you see that change. It goes both ways, and there's nothing better than that. And to hear what you got going on, that's amazing, man. People helping people, that's what it's all about, especially during this time when everything's inverted, right? They want to, keep you away from human contact with each other, and, cut you off from nature, no sun, stay indoors. It's just everything's perverse and inverted. So seeing something like this that you got going on, it's inspiring, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, what we started learning though too is that the lowest, and I know there's a wide spectrum of ideas around COVID, but it was us, we're on these task force emails because we're part of the team, folks who are going out supporting. So we jumped on some of these calls, and then, and there's a lot of folks in, medical personnel, and they were like, wow, we don't know why, but we thought, there would be an explosion in these encampments, but they have lower counts of COVID than folks who've been sheltered in place and less symptomatic. And they were sort of attributing that possibly because they're outside, their immune systems have been engaged with so many different things already, so it's more robust. They're like getting more sunshine. So but people sort of stepped over that. They didn't really check that long. They just like, wow, that's interesting. But then went back to, you know,
Yeah.
but I was like, wow, that's interesting, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tell my dad. My dad just I'm 39. I've never seen him sick. And
Yeah.
my mom would say the same thing. And he's always out in the sun. Even in the winter, he'll get out there, take his shirt off, and just soak up the energy and get that good vitamin D, man. And that's kind of what I tell him. I said, "You're charged. You're charged from the sun."
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's great. And again, I think it's just it's really powerful to be just going out into that community and just helping people that need help, and sort of, you're really directly competing against that narrative of, of COVID, and you're like, here, drink some juice, and boost your immune system, regardless of the media saying that that's not a thing, and that needs to be censored. You're out there just doing it, proving it, and
Yeah.
that's what's really powerful about activism, and really wisdom is action, and your wisdom led you to take these positive steps, and it's really powerful. The other thing that, again, you've talked about a little bit, but the power of music. And I did watch your TED talk that you talked about, where you were the Uber rapper, and
Yeah.
just sort of like making people's day with music.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I changed it to liftrapper.com. So I had a crazy story. So I was doing that for a while, just in the car, me and my homies. I was like, yo, we should put a, so I was driving Lyft and Uber. I was driving Uber and I was driving Lyft. And I was like, yo, we should put like a camera up and like make a show or something. And I think one time I was actually preparing for a show, because I'm in this band, Earth Amplify is one of my crews, and then Dogan Lights, West African like hip hop band. And then we had a show, and I was prepping for the show, going over some lyrics in the car. Then I was asking the passenger, I was like, yo, what do you like to think about this? And he was like, yo, that's dope. And then I was like, yo, this would be interesting. Like, we turned into a show. So I was like, well, how about I would give you a topic, a style of the music. You give me a topic and style of music. I have presets of beats, and you say, R&B and Italian food or something, and I make a love song to pizza or whatever. And then, so then, and then I was like, or you can get intuitive reading, because after a while, just writing with people, a lot of times you can pick up energies and things with people. And I was like, what if I just did intuitive readings? So I was just sort of messing around. And so the songs went so dope, to the point that we started putting up videos and people started biting it. People started doing it. And I got a call from someone from, some reality TV shows in LA. It was an interesting moment. But then I ended up meeting the CEO of Lyft at a friend of mine, Paul Hawkins. He did Project Drawdown. This like book around like sort of climate environment solutions through nature and things like that. So I was at this book release, and the CEOs of Lyft were there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we saw this. And how would you like to be Lyft rapper?" And I was like how much you paying? Like, what's up? And so they were like, yeah. So I became Lyft rapper at that moment. So liftrapper.com. So that was a good chance to just be with people direct, because there's a lot of different ways. Different people have different theories of change, in a lot of different ways. But I guess we have to look at, what are your skill set, what are your own assets, where are you, do you find yourself? The past has happened, the future hasn't happened yet. What is presently happening right now? What power do we have right now? And I was like, well, I'm not gonna sit in the car and just drive people around. Like, that's not like a waste of time. I gotta make it good for me. I gotta enrich myself. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna do freestyle. I'm gonna get something. They're gonna get something. And there was some moments where people were like, people got in the car. I'm like, wow, what happened? They were like, yeah, I just got fired or whatever, right? And then I'm like, well, you with the Lyft rapper now. Let's change it. So I had a chance to be like a different archetype. I could play like the rescuer. I could play the hero. I could play, you know, all these different archetypes. And then so for some people, I was like the healer or the comedian. And then when people, it could shift people's states of consciousness through music and through just the randomness of actually getting in a car with someone who says that they're a Lyft rapper and we're like filming a show. Like just that alone was like, whoa, like maybe there's you know, something good can happen today. Maybe it's not all bad. And I saw that as direct action. I was like, you know, I don't know what happens necessarily when I scratch off a letter on my ballot. I don't know, you know, it's a lot of possibilities where that goes, you know, but I do know when if somebody get in the car, I can talk to this person, I can be with this person, I can be a positive impact right then and there. So yeah, Lyft Rappers is a fun project.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I know that your music is really powerful, both your hip hop and the what do you call it? The instrument you play?
Oh, the Ngoni, yeah, that's like the medicine music. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Ngoni, yeah, that's a celestial church.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I actually worked for Uber for a while, and I kind of looked at it the same way, just in terms of, you know, being a talkative person, and you know, people kind of open up to me, and you know, I'm pretty open, so I think it like invites that, and then yeah, you could just kind of, you know, make someone's day. And you know, there were times when I maybe was like handing out like, or I mean, I wouldn't always get into like you know, the activism conversation, but if it came up, you know, I might talk about, you know, the health freedom movement and what was going on. And
Right.
so yeah, no, it's definitely an opportunity to connect with people. So that's cool
Right.
that you did that. Cool, man. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I think, you know, we had a good talk, and you know, maybe even in the future have you on again. I definitely still am interested in possibly volunteering with what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, come through. Yeah, we're essentialfam.org. On Instagram, we're at essential.fam. Yeah, come through, you know, sign up. We're usually in West Oakland at O2AA. The spot that has aquaponics, we do composting, all of that there. And it's just fun. It's just fun, essentially. And it's very subversive in a way, because it's bringing people together, and it's helping people, and it's staying out a lot of the narratives that can get caught in our mind that this is who we think we are, or what we need to be, but really, ultimately, we're just human beings. Yeah. So you just reminded me that I was on a show with Health Ranger
Oh,
once.
really?
Yeah, around with Food Fight. You know that song Food Fight? The video I have, Food Fight, about GMOs and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then so when that first came out, he interviewed me. I think it was on an Alex Jones show. Yeah, he had a segment on Alex Jones show, and that was really fun.
That's cool.
That's cool.
He went
That's
into
awesome.
it. Yeah, I
He went
respect
in deep, huh?
that dude. I respect that dude. He gets there's a lot of folks who get a lot of hell, but he's that's why I like music. I can always be like, oh, I'm just a musician. I'm just over here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and those guys, you know, like Mike Adams, you know, I mean, he does put out a lot of good information, and he, you know, he opens a lot of people's eyes, but then people question like the motives at a certain point, you know, and
Yeah,
uh, you got to take everything for what it's worth. And that's part of our approach is you got to take in information from an
yeah,
eclectic source, you know, a wide variety of different people. And you know, you have to keep the good and leave the bad. And don't, you know, people don't discredit people just because of one thing they did or one thing they were connected
right,
with. You know, you got to just use that discernment.
exactly. Yeah, intuition, discernment, really big. That's why I like meditation. I keep going back to meditation because it helps develop your intuition, so that you can just see clear and discern. You can be your own best antenna.
Yeah,
You know?
for sure. As you think, so you feel, and so you act. So you get that trifecta, right? The mind and the emotions, and then the body and action. So yeah, meditation's definitely important.
So there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when we go out and we basically set up and we try to get information to people about natural law, and we get into these philosophical discussions. And I have been thinking more about, like, if you really, ultimately, it is all about spirituality and sort of reconnecting people with the spirit. That's the way we're going to open people up. But it does take a healthy diet and a healthy, like, starting with the physical, and then the meditation to prepare your mind really to focus and to take in information, and then to have some clarity to think through it and take your time with it, sort of let it process, because the epiphany doesn't come right away. It comes later. It comes on episode 6 or is episode 5? Is it I think it's episode 6 with Ashel, where you say something and I'm like, oh, that connects to that thing. And like, I'm gonna probably we're gonna get off this, and I'm gonna call Will and be like, oh, he said the thing about what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
And the more we do this, I mean, it's gonna multiply exponentially. Like, I hope that what you're doing catches on as a model.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
One thing I wanted to ask before we go is, you guys were saying you were getting the food from the Oakland school district. Where else are you getting it from? Like local
Right.
farmers?
Well, we were initially getting, like, Social was getting food from the Oakland school district, and then she was redistributing that because they had extra surplus when the school shut down and everything shut down. But also, farmers weren't able to get food to the restaurants because the restaurants were shut down. So there was a lot of surplus of food, perfectly fine food, empty kitchens. So we were like, well, let's actually utilize all that. So we talked to farmers as well. We get the food direct. We get food that was going to food banks, like food that was essentially going to go fallow or going to garbage. We sort of redirecting it. We take what we need or want, and then we make healthy stuff out of it. And then we redistribute that. And we have a soup team that makes a bunch of amazing soups. So, powerful thing about working with food, you never go hungry. If you're always like distributing things, then it's like you never go hungry in the process because there's so much food out there. Yeah, so much.
That's amazing.
And medicines too, we like lemons turned out to be our number one thing we need and want always. Lemons. So we have a team of people who do foraging. Instead of having in your backyard, have a lemon tree, just the things just going bad on the ground. That's like utilize that and actually give it life. So sort of rescuing those things and making use out of things that might be considered disposable.
Yeah, foraging's one of my favorite things that I take my daughter and we do, and identify plants, edible plants, and look for herbs and stuff like that. She gets a kick out of it. So starting her off young, but that's
Yeah,
amazing, man. Food is
yeah.
medicine.
Food is medicine. Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, Ashel. Well, before we go, plug everything again one last time.
Yeah, so Ashel Seasunz, www.ashelseasunz.com. That's ASHELSEASUNZ. And then Essential Fam is the organization, Essential Food and Medicine, essentialfam.org. You can check us out at Essential Fam on Instagram or at Ashel Seasunz on Instagram as well. Come through.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right on.
We'll be hitting you up.
All right.
All right. Well, Ashel, thanks again for coming through.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Bless.
And always remember, Put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Take
like
care.
that one.
Peace.
I love it.